Welcome back to the shop and to the channel. Last couple of videos I've been working on this black diamond drill grinder. Got it all taken apart, cleaned off the decades of grinding dust. Got a new wheel installed. Been having some fun grinding some drills, learning a little bit about this web thinning attachment and how much I still have yet to learn. Grinding a drill is not all that difficult when you got a machine like this. But this thing is still missing a critical component that has, caused me to put a pause on any more drill grinding, and that really is I need to face this wheel. Dress it rather. I need to dress the face and I need to dress the OD. And this machine did not come with the wheel dressers. Now, normally there would be a wheel dresser mounted here. Actually, there would be two of them, one to dress the face and then one to dress the OD. Like I said, fortunately, this machine, it was not part of the auction lot. So I got to try to figure out what I can do to make one, because I think finding one will be like finding hen's teeth. I think it's probably an unlikely thing that's going to happen. I recently got an email from a viewer that said, hey, I got one of these drill grinders and offered to do a drawing for me of the wheel dresser as it sits on his, and I was overjoyed. And then I got the drawings and realized the version of this machine that he has is a bit different than the version that I have. There's at least two different kinds of wheel dressers, or at least configurations for this machine, and they're not interchangeable, at least not for the one for the OD. On some machines, the OD is actually chamfered at an angle, and that is for using the web thinning attachment. This one is designed for the wheel to be straight, to be square to the face. So that particular attachment won't work on this machine. I'll insert a little video here that I found on YouTube, a couple of different ones on the different kinds of wheel dressing attachments. This is a video from another YouTuber, another home shop guy is his channel. And here you can see the two different wheel dressers that are on this machine. And if you look real close to this one here on the back, you can see that its mount looks like it allows the dresser itself to pivot. And I don't believe that's the way mine is designed. But he also mentions this front wheel dresser, and there's this wheel on a crank that is supposed to attach to it that allows that wheel dresser to go back and forth to dress that wheel. Now, this is another video I got off of someone that was selling these machines from many, many years ago. And here you can see the wheel dressers are attached to a more solid block on the machine. This is more like what I need to build. So you might have been able to tell from the video that this machine has a hard attachment point, which means what I mean by that is the wheel dressers are at right angles to each other and they're fixed. But getting those drawings from Mitchel actually gave me some encouragement to just go ahead and start figuring it out. So I came out here to the shop and I actually used a piece of paper to trace out this spot where the wheel dressers mounted, and I just started drawing it up in CAD and creating some prototypes. I discovered that there is a 250 thousandths dowel pin hole here. There's another one here that's slightly larger. I forget the dimensions of that one. And I just started drawing it up and 3D printing it. And, I came up with a few different iterations. This one didn't quite work out. I'm not sure what I was thinking there. So eventually I came up with something like this. And this would mount on here in these 3 holes. if I spin this around to the back, see here's a spot for the rear dresser. I got a piece of rod here I'll kind of stick in for demonstration purposes. I did figure out, get these hole placements correct. So, and then to hold the diamond, which I have a couple of diamonds here, with a little holder, and this will be threaded, and that'll let me thread that in and out to adjust the depth of the dresser. And this one's pretty simple, just kind of go back and forth. You can sit there, be happy. This one right here, if you remember from that one video, or those videos, there's a hand crank in the front that moves a rod, and that's what this sort of mechanism here is for. So you imagine that there's a rod on here, and I'm moving it in and out, and that allows me to dress the face of the wheel, and a similarly manufactured holder here for the diamond will let me face it. So yeah, I mean, this was quite a few iterations. This was, I think, number 2. I had originally made these little base plates to see if the holes would line up, and that's how I was able to adjust the location of these holes, because measuring this stuff, you can only get so far with a pair of calipers and some dowels. But this helped me fine tune it, and went through a few different iterations of the holders, and it just kind of goes from there until you finally find one that works. And part of this monologue here that I'm giving is to kind of demonstrate how a 3D printer can be so useful in the machine shop, because now I have a plan of what I need to make. I was able to adjust this. There's two, here's the third one. This is one before here. I had this little chamfer here, which I don't really need anymore because the location of the hole changed. But I was able to fine tune it. This is pretty close to what I think it should be. But having a 3D printer and learning tools like Fusion 360 or SolidWorks, or even things like Tinkercad or whatever, can help you figure out what it is, how to manufacture something. Because I can manufacture this or draw this up in Fusion 360. I can print this on my 3D printer. This piece right here takes about an hour or so, hour and a half maybe, to print another base. And I can continue working on this and iterating until I have something that fits just right. So I think the task now is I need to get a piece of material, because it's probably going to be the more challenging component to make, is this base. This thing would have come from Black Diamond as a cast piece of material. I'm not going to have I'm not going to have this cast. Sure, I could send it down to, Clark down at Windy Hill Foundry, but, that's quite an expense. And I think for me and my little shop, I just need a big block of steel, and I'll just whittle away all the parts that aren't this base, and then what's left is the base. So now I just need to find a piece of steel that's about the size. It's about 4 inches square, and I just need to get rid of all the parts that aren't the base, and I'll have it. So the 3D modeling really kind of helps me figure out even, some of the mechanics, some of the angles that these things need to be at, distances. This is an actual piece. This is, or it will be, right? I need to machine that on the lathe. There's a few features on this that aren't modeled in here that we'll model up later, but for now I need to find a piece of steel 4 inches on a side that I can pull this out of. I rummaged around in my scrap drawer and found this piece of steel, which I have no idea what this is made out of. I hope it's not hardened, but it looks like it's just some hot rolled mild steel. But it is 4 inches, just at 4 inches. It's a little bit tall, but not by much. course, it's a bit long. So I need to take and cut about a little more than 4 inches off of this. And I think we'll go ahead and do that over at the horizontal bandsaw. All right, I got this mounted up in the bandsaw. I've got a 6-10 TPI, nice coarse blade in here. I'm laying this flat because honestly I don't trust that this thing's not going to veer off course. I've had really good luck with this bandsaw, but occasionally it gets a mind of its own, or there's a dull tooth and it starts tracking funny. So I figure with it short, if it tracks funny, I'll have less to clean up. I put this little extra weight on here on the bandsaw. That gives it a little bit more pressure. I do this all the time with this bandsaw. It doesn't have enough downforce, at least not the way that this is currently set up. I would love to replace this spring mechanism on the back here with the hydraulic cylinder, but that'll be a project for another day. I'm introducing a new feature on the channel, and it is called forgetting to turn on the wireless microphone when you're recording video. So for the next few clips, you just got me in the voiceover. So this part came off of the bandsaw, actually pretty square. Sometimes that bandsaw, it can wander if there is even the slightest tooth that's out of place, you know, if it's dull or it's slightly bent. That's a relatively new blade, so I'm happy that I got a good straight square cut on it. I still have a little bit of work to do on it. It's a little bit oversized in one direction and it's a bit too thick. So I could take this over to the Bridgeport and go ahead and start machining it, or I could take it over to the Shaper. I haven't used the Shaper in a while, and partly it's because I've been kind of aggravated with the vise that came on it. It's a decent vise, but the movable jaw on it just needs some work. There's a lot of slop in it, and I think the screw on it is a bit worn out and probably needs to get replaced. And in the process of trying to figure out what to do about it, I ended up ordering one of these 4-inch Vevor milling vices. The only thing I think I don't like about it is pretty tall, and so I think I'm going to lose some vertical tool clearance here on the Shaper, but everything looks like it's nicely ground. I don't know if it's in great condition. I did run this test block on it and got some really good results. I was pretty happy with it. I did tram it in to the ram, so I know it's in good shape there. And I think the jaws will open up enough to mount this piece. I forget what the maximum size for these jaws are, but this thing's a little more than 4 inches, so I won't have any problem mounting it up. And when I bought the vise, I went ahead and ordered a set of 4-inch parallels. Again, these are some import parallel. I forget the manufacturer. I just got them off of Amazon. To square this up, I'm using a technique that I got from Tom's Techniques YouTube channel, where he uses a copper wire here to kind of take out any of the irregularities on an unmachined face. Go check out his channel. I don't think he's published anything in years, but the stuff he has out there is still valid today for sure. Before I get started, I want to take this piece of high-speed steel out of here and touch it up on the grinder. Well, now that I have the Rockwell tool grinder all set up, I've got the table tilted to 5 degrees. I can go ahead and use the silicon carbide wheel here to clean this up and make sure I've got a good sharp edge on this tool. Using the tool grinder leaves a fairly sharp edge here, and which is, you would think, is a good thing. But on that cutting edge, I want to hone this and break that edge, because if I don't, it's just going to break off anyway. But by giving it a bit of a radius, I have a better chance of it surviving. With that tool nice and sharp now, I've got it back in the shaper. I need to set the depth or the tool height so I get a decent depth of cut. I only want to take off about 30 thousandths at a pass here. So I've loosened the gib here. I'll lower the tool head down until I touch off. And I'm just moving the ram back and forth until I feel that start to bite just a tiny, tiny bit. And then I bring it down another 20, I think 25 thousandths is what I did here. I'm tightening the gibs just to make sure I don't get any pushback on the workhead to minimize any effects of tool pressure. And now we start shaping. Looking back at this video now, I'm thinking maybe this is not quite 25 thousandths depth of cut. Might be 15 because it doesn't really look like it's peeling too large of a chip off. But all that I'm interested in doing right now is getting a good, clean, flat surface to start squaring up this piece of material. Okay, not great finish, but good enough for what I need. I need to deburr these edges, and then I need to flip it 90 degrees that way, which means I'm going to need to raise my tool head and probably drop the table. All right, well, I have the table down as far as it will go. This is about up as high as I can really get it before I think it would end up creating problems for me, but I think it'll work. Although there's a little bit of a kink here in this mechanism. It is not quite long enough. I think I need to make that a little bit longer. That's just kind of pushing the limits here. Maybe. Now this side's going to take a couple of passes to clean up because there's a bit of a crown to it. I'll bring you back when I start the second pass. Well, hopefully this second pass will clean it up now all the way across. I got a good edge here. Let's hope we get a good edge coming out the other way. I think so. All right, that cleaned up all the way. I will need to deburr the edge and then rotate it again another 90 degrees, which means I got to raise the table back up, which is going to take a while. So I think what I'm going to do is bring you back when I get this thing squared up on all four sides. And then we'll have to square up the two ends. A little machinist square here. Let's see how we did. It looks really good. It's a nice square edge. I'm actually pretty happy with that. All right. I'll bring you back when I'm about to do one of these end sides, because that might be a bit tricky. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to set that up in order to get a square edge on there. Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 sides cleaned up, and they are square to each other. But now I want to clean up this top, which means I need these faces to be square with the vise bottom. This is an unfinished face down here, so I don't really have any reference for this. So what I'm thinking is I would use a square like this. If I trust the top of these jaws are in fact square, if I bring this up here and see just how much, so it needs to, the top needs to come this way just a little bit. Take a lead hammer here, just tap it a little, and I'm just doing this by feel. That's first try. All right. Yeah, I think that's really good. I think we're going to call it there. All right. I am going to have to lower the table yet again, because this has a lot of extra material. So when I turn it over, I'll go ahead and machine it to size. I may end up using a shear tool or something to try to get a better finish on this. I might do that on this end as well. I do want to put better finishes on the other edges as well. I'm more interested in the top face and one of the front faces at least, because that's what I'm going to see. All right, let me get the table lowered. I'll take a pass. I'll bring it back when I've got this one done. Well, this is my version of a rusty knock shear tool, which probably isn't even close to what a rusty knock shear tool is, but yeah, this looks like crap. If this ends up looking like crap, it might not make it into the video. I'm only taking just a few thousandths of an inch, and my step over is pretty light too, so we'll see. My step over is only like 4 thousandths. I feel like my depth of cut needs to be more. Let me back up. Or something needs to be more. I think I'm going to go a little deeper. It's not giving me those fine chips I was hoping to see. Well, we'll see what the finish looks like when this is done. If it looks good enough, I'll leave it. Okay, that's after one pass of this radius shear tool. It feels okay, but I kind of feel like it could be better. So I think I'm going to do one more pass and just take like maybe 2 thousandths of an inch and see if it gets me I started getting a little of the curlies, but these are pretty thick. And I was hoping for finer ones. Maybe my step over. I think I'm stepping over 4 thousandths of an inch. Maybe I take that down to the minimum, which is 2 thousandths. I don't know if that will help. But yeah, this is fun. I enjoy using the shaper. I want to see if I can get this just a little bit better. So I'm going to try taking another 2 thousandths off. Maybe I'll change my step over to 2 thousandths, which means this will take forever. to go one pass. So yeah, I won't bore you with that. I'll bring you back when it's done. We'll see how this looks after one more pass. So about a 2,000 step to cut and about a 2,000 step over. Well, that's a big improvement. You can still feel some ridging on here, and that might have been just from the rough cut, but I think for this project this will be good enough. It's really smooth. You know, it's not mirror finish, but I think it's hard to get that with a shaper. But right now I need to flip this thing around and do something similar with the other end. I do need to take off a little bit, probably about 100 thousandths on the dimension. I need this to be about 4 inches square. I know I'm a little bit short on the other dimension, I think, because this started off at around 4 inches. So this is 972 thousandths or so. So I'm going to lose a little bit more when I take some finishing passes on these ends. But for now, I need to flip it over, get it down to about 4 inches, and do the finishing. I'll do that off camera. So, because I've got a long way to go. I don't think you want to sit here and watch this shaper go for the next 2 hours. I'll do a little bit video here and there, but for the most part, I'm just going to go ahead and get this finished up off camera. It's nice and square. I'm happy with it so far. So I'm using a different roughing tool here to bring this down to size. I actually have about 150 thousandths to come off of this. So I've got this left-handed tool that's a little bit more aggressive. That I think will do a better job than the other grind. So I'm taking about 30 thousandths off per cut. So take a few more of these and remeasure. Okay, I got this down to within 10 thousandths plus or minus of the final width. So I swung this back around so I can use this shear tool. I think I have it set for about 5 thousandths of an inch. I'll take maybe a couple of passes like that. I am using a little bit of cutting oil, so I'm hoping maybe this will give me a better chance of getting a really good finish. My step overs only about 8, maybe 6 thousandths. I need to work a little bit on getting a better grind, maybe a better shear tool. It's doing a decent job, but I feel like it could certainly be better. Now that I have that tool grinder up and running, I feel like I have a better chance of getting a better tool ground. I do need to work on getting a miter gauge for it so I can set proper angles, maybe even creating some setup blocks like I've seen Mr. Pete make for grinding lathe tooling. Maybe something like that will help me. I do enjoy using the shaper. My biggest, I don't know, hesitation maybe is just getting better at grinding high-speed steel tooling. I think if I spent some time just trying to hone that skill, no pun intended, that I would want to use this machine more, because it's fun to watch. Well, I have all of the 4 sides done, the outsides. Now I'm moving to the larger size. Taking 1 5/1000th of an inch cut across this. We'll assess it, make sure that it's, decent enough finish, and then I got to flip it over. Now, the thing I have to decide here is this thing's about 250 thousandths thicker than what my drawing says. So the question is, do I take 250 thousandths off of the thickness of this thing, or do I take less than that and redo my drawing? I guess we'll find out. Well, I indeed did decide to call it quits on this and say that this is finished to size. Let's see how I made out here. 3 950 thousandths. Yep. 4.5 thousandths over 4 inches. That's fine. And then, yeah, I guess I quit. I'm about 123 thousandths too thick here. 1 inch 379. And that's okay. I think I'm going to redo the drawing. I might go ahead and print out another one of these just to be sure. But this took me 2 days. 2 days in the evening, that is, because I still have a full-time regular paying job. But the finish came out fantastic. I'm really happy with it. I love that finish that the Shaper gives. You just can't get on any other machine. And it is really square. It's really nice. I'm really happy with how square all of the corners came out. That Vevor vise, say what you want about Vevor, and that's not sponsored. I paid for that vise, for what it's worth. It's not too bad for a $60 vise. Anyway, I think it's going to be it for this week. This just took a lot of time, and when you add moving the camera around and everything, it just takes up a lot. I need to get the video edited and get it put up so it's ready to go. Next, once I revise the drawing, I'm going to go ahead and do some layout lines on this. Just, some anti-bozo stuff. I do all my measurements usually from one corner, so I will create a drawing that will tell me where all this stuff is. None of this stuff is really dimensionally nominal. They're kind of all over the place a little bit, and that's because I just kind of made it to fit. It fits that pad that's over on the drill grinder, and I don't think this extra 120 thousandths is going to make a difference, but And it's, you know, a little bit undersized, but again, that's not really going to make much of a difference either. This is not intended to be a precision part, so I have a lot that I have to remove. I think I have probably more material I have to remove yet than what will be left. And that I will not do on the Shaper. That Shaper is nice. It's nice to have. Was it fun doing this? Yeah, but it took a long time. That Shaper is I think, too small for a project this size. It's fine for smaller stuff, but I think for something like this, all this finishing, it did a great job, don't get me wrong, but I just think it's a bit too small to do something like this. It was hours of that thing. So the rest of this I'll end up doing on the Bridgeport. Not 100% sure on order of operations yet. There's a couple of holes that aren't indicated on here. There's a set screw in these two locations to hold that pin into place. I'm actually thinking about drilling all of the holes first, because I also have 2 holes down here on the bottom for the dowel pins. Drilling all the holes first and then coming back with an end mill and machining out the negative space. And, you know, we'll kind of see where it goes to from there. I don't think I need to have these corners as solid corners. I think they'll work fine if I were to use an end mill and plunge in from the top. That's going to be a lot of material to remove. I am worried a little bit about, you know, burrs on these holes if I'm milling with them gone, but I think it'll be easier to hold this if it's solid to drill these holes. I don't know. I could change my mind. I'd be interested in knowing what you think. Go ahead and drop a comment down below. Let me know how you would approach this. Anyway, that's it. I am tired. It is late. It is currently 11:30 at night. I need to get some sleep, so I will get this edited tomorrow and up for you guys to be watching. So if you're seeing this on a Sunday at noon, then I guess I made it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.